Welcome to Driven Flawed. So what were the best bits of the Bitter SC Coupe and what were its troublesome problems? So top 5 things that I didn't like about the Bitter. Well, to be honest, the biggest problem and the biggest issue for me deciding to sell this extraordinary and iconic car was its competition. Pretty much the same week that the Bitter arrived, I picked up this Supra, and there was just really no competition, and so sadly the Bitter has to go. Anyway, what else don't I like about the Bitter? Well, as you know, if you've watched the collection video, it left me stranded. Now, it left me stranded for a couple of reasons. The fan was broken. Well, that was fair enough. The seller that I bought it from had told me about the fan, but also we had this electrical issue, and I've just had my fingers burnt too much on cars with electrical issues, especially large, big cars like the Bitter. I had an 850 BMW, which was an electrical nightmare. Talk about driving something that was flawed. The 850 was it just never worked. That electrical issue, one of the things I didn't like about the car. Styling-wise, I think this is a really unusual, great looking car. That's the Supra, just letting me know that it's my favourite. The styling on the Bitter, it's got such extraordinary angles. The back, you almost can't, if I go the other side of the Mustang, you kind of get a bit of a sense against modern vehicles. It's really wide and really low, almost squashed. It's just a fascinating car, but I don't like the execution that Bitter have done with these bumper systems. They feel a little bit like a throwback to the US restrictions that came in when Porsche and others had these ridiculous big bumpers. It's sort of got that feel to it. For the fourth thing I didn't like about the Bitter, we have to get inside into this extraordinary cabin. It's really hard not to like this, but the seating system is a bit awkward, and it has an item here which sort of work quite well and can help with the bolstering of the seat. But here, this system here is just not brilliantly thought through design, which I guess is what you get on a car that's been such small numbers and bespoke built. But this here always is a fiddle to get forward, partly because it's a coupe and you've got to have ability to get into the back, but to get that forward, it wants to always get stuck, and then it gets caught on the little wheel, and it's just a pain, and that happens all the time. And then if you imagine you put your seatbelt on like that and it's caught on there, and then you have a crash, it's not going to operate correctly. So it's not a brilliant design. Not a big thing, but it could be a big thing if you hadn't spotted that you hadn't got it on properly. Another thing I didn't like about it was this starter button, which I don't know if you can see that, but that has been mounted in the dash, which I subsequently found out after buying it is aftermarket. It's not really how they were designed. It's just the original GM Opel Senator ignition around here, and what has probably happened in its lifetime is this has failed, and so they've wired in a starter button. Either that or someone just fancied having a starter button. Either way, not a big fan. Okay, so while I'm in the car, let's move on to the 5 things I really like about the Bitter. Well, this interior, the colourway, you just don't get cars like this anymore. You think about BMW, Mercedes and Audi and all of the manufacturers, they're just so dull. Second thing I love about the Bitter, the wheels. These wheels are lovely. These are the original Ronal wheels, and they are really, really nice. The ones on this car are in excellent condition. They've all been properly looked after. If they have been refinished, they've been refinished really, really well. So the wheels, big plus for me. Third thing I like about this car is its power, which we're not going to be able to see today, but it has the 3.9 litre engine. It really moves in a lovely smooth way. You could just cruise along all day long, and yet it's got beef to it. It's got something there that really likes to go when you get on the power. It feels a bit more aggressive compared to my XJS. It's similar in its sort of cruising sense, but generally it is a more aggressive, punchier car. Having said some of the styling is a bit compromised over these bumper issues, the overall look of the styling is brilliant. And that would be my 4th thing that I like about the Bitter. It is a really unusual looking car. I mean, even next to the Supra, it doesn't get much more iconic than the glorious wing and the looks of the Supra Mark IV, but that Bitter just a fascinating looking car. I love the way it looks, and that is without doubt one of my favourite things about it. The fifth thing I love about the Bitter is the story. This is a guy, an entrepreneur, German chap, Enrich Bitter, who's gone up against the big boys. He's looked at the BMW 635 CSI, and he's looked at Jaguar with their XJS, and others of the time, contemporaries of the time, but particularly those two. And he has decided to create something better. The story around this is fascinating, and if you don't know more about it, check it out. It's kind of a DeLorean type story without some of the scandal and without being so well known. Bitter was a fascinating guy with a dream to create a beautiful car that could compete with the very largest manufacturers. And for a number of years, he managed to make that work. He kept it going. He managed to keep the thing on track. He was churning out cars, 1 a week and 2 a week. They were building up. In the end, they only built about 450 worldwide, but they did produce a car that was a genuinely interesting, worthy car. And I love the Bitter because of that, because of this tremendous story behind it. So that's pretty much it for today. I am going to be saying goodbye to this. We'll be moving on to the Supra and all that I want to do to begin to have some fun with that. So join me on my journey with the Supra, join me in the Mustang and some of the adventures and the plans I've got for having some fun in the Mach 1. Thanks for watching Driven Flawed. I really appreciate the time you take to watch these videos. If you want to find out more about what I'm doing, then subscribe.